Vision. Following clues left by our ancestors, we unbury the past to reveal a knowledge of unfathomable value, putting us just a little closer to our own true birthrights. From the secret history of a possible bloodline of Jesus Christ, the secret history of America's founders, to the secret history of extraterrestrial interaction on our planet, here to bring light to the night. Your host for Night Vision Radio, Renee Barnett.
Hey everybody, welcome to Night Vision once again. So good to see everybody, or I virtually see you. I'm your host, Renee Barnett. We have a great show planned for tonight. But first, I thought I would just do a little bit of a rant about what in the heck is going on this week. I know last week we had my colleague from KGRA here, Tracy Austin. We were having so many technical glitches, and she claimed it was Mercury retrograde. And ever since then, this whole week, everything that could go wrong has gone wrong with communications, cars, any kind of conveyances. And I even checked in with our favorite astrologer, master astrologist, Matt Gleason, who's been on this show a couple of times. And I just sent him a message and said, can't you do anything about this Mercury retrograde? It's killing me. And he said, hunker down, write it out, and chant. So I think it's supposed to be over February 3rd. I don't know a lot about astrology, but I'm beginning to be a believer because I tell you, I won't even go the rundown of everything that's broken down, messed up, whatever. But I'm curious to know if other people are experiencing those same things. I know Tracy Austin said she's never seen it like this either. And certainly our astrologer, Matt Gleason, agreed with that. So I'd be curious to know if any guys out there want to reach out to me, either in the chat room here or on Facebook, and just tell me, what the heck is going on? Are you having a lot of problems too? But tonight we have a wonderful show planned. I'm really excited, and I have to thank my good buddy Court Lindell for introducing me to my guest tonight, who is, as far as I can see, a super expert on Sir Francis Bacon, who was the first Viscount of St. Albans. He was also the Baron of Verulam, which is named for the area called Verulamium, which is what St. Albans area used to be called in Roman days. So we're going to hear all about that. I know that probably a lot of you, if you're into this history and mystery and the whole overarching subject area that all, Rennies, and now I'm calling them Okies, are into, and not an Okie like me from Oklahoma, but I'm talking about people interested in Oak Island. This material is superb. So I'm going to introduce my guest now. His name is Jake Roberts, and he is with us now, or maybe he's not. There he is.
Thanks, Renee. Thanks so much.
Hi, Jake.
Well, I just want to say I don't profess to be an expert in anything. So before we get,
I always say that to everyone.
Let's have lower expectations, and hopefully I'll
see. That's smart thinking. I always do that too, but unfortunately, in my case, it's true. Sort of jack of all trades, master of none. And I always say that my brain is a storehouse of useless information. I know just a little bit about everything, but not a whole lot about anything. So that's why I depend on people like you, who, as we were talking earlier, following your magnificent obsession with Francis Drake. And now, some of you listeners or watchers, might know a little bit about Francis Drake already, and you may have heard some of the speculation that he was actually the author of the works of William Shakespeare. So we're going to find out a little bit about that. Now, I hear you're also a code breaker, Jake.
Well, yeah, that is a part of what I did, and you're right. I mean, so Francis Drake is kind of involved, but basically, what I did was I was able to decrypt a series of ciphers.
Did I say Drake?
Yes, it's okay.
I'm sorry.
But he is involved.
And this is just what I'm talking about. Bacon. How can I forget?
Yes.
I love bacon. I love crispy bacon. I love smelling bacon.
Oh, me too.
I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
Slip out.
What's that?
I said, how did that slip out?
Oh, I don't know. Well, it's funny because all of this work with Sir Francis Bacon, I mean, as I was telling you in the pre-show, it's just turned into this huge rabbit hole that just continues, and it's and you're right. My wife would agree with you that it has become an obsession for sure. But basically, what had happened was, I had been interested in studying symbolism for over 28 years as an English teacher. Kind of fell into that, which of course leads to, the areas of secret societies and their symbolism. And then lo and behold, it leads me to the works of, say, Manly Palmer Hall, for example,
yes.
and the Secret Teachings of All Ages in particular, where he goes into some detail regarding Sir Francis Bacon, Shakespeare, Bacon's ciphers, as well as the Rosicrucians. And so that kind of has always been a huge interest of mine. And then what happened was one of my dear friends who recently passed away was a researcher for The Curse of Oak Island, and he was a theorist. He had been on the show. He had done multiple presentations in the War Room for Rick and Marty. His name is Chris Dona. Some of you might remember him from season 6. And he was doing some research with Chris Morford, who has been on the show multiple times. He introduced me to Chris Morford, and Christopher was doing some work with the plaque that's on the funerary monument of William Shakespeare in Holy Trinity Church in Stratford upon Avon. And they said, well, you like ciphers and this sort of thing. Why don't you take a crack at it? I said, yeah, sure. And I had looked at this plaque years ago, and I had identified certain features of it that indicated to me that there was a very specific kind of cipher on it called a transposition cipher. And when I looked at it, I thought, okay, this will take a whole lot of time and a whole lot of attention to crack this, and I really don't feel like doing it. I could tell how much work it was really going to take. And so when they had mentioned to me that, maybe you ought to take a look at this, I said, okay. And then, of course, suddenly we had the whole coronacation happening, with the lockdowns, the quarantines.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
So all of a sudden I had some time on my hands. And so this, I should have taken up knitting instead, like a lot of people did during that time.
It wouldn't have driven you nearly as crazy.
Right, exactly. I would have had a lot of nice sweaters. But
before we get too far down the road with the plaque,
sure.
I meant to ask you, what got you into this in the first place? Why Bacon?
Well, that's just it. It was one of those things where I had, read Manly Palmer Hall's works, and everything was pointing to Sir Francis Bacon when it comes to, secret societies and this kind of symbolism and messaging. And so when my friends were looking at the plaque, they said, well, maybe you ought to take a look at it. And it had a lot of indications that it was the work of Sir Francis Bacon. And so I applied the Baconian cipher systems to decrypting the plaque, and it worked.
Oh my gosh. But why didn't anybody ever do that before?
I love that question. I love that, because so many people ask me that, and I think people have. I don't think I'm the first person to ever do this, Renee. And the reason I say this, in the Rosicrucian Fama Fraternitatis, for example, the one of the edicts of the Rosy Cross was that when you become a member, when you learn their secrets, that what you're supposed to do is never tell those secrets openly, but instead you're supposed to depict them either in literature or in art, using or basically depict them through the themes and symbolism of the story, never explicitly saying them outward. And
Yes.
so, and so when I look at certain themes and stories in literature, in particular, as an English teacher, the works of Alexander Dumas, the Count of Monte Cristo, The Man in the Iron Mask,
Yes.
these stories have themes that go along with the secret history of Sir Francis Bacon. Some of the works of Mark Twain as well, Sam Clemens, Sir Walter Scott, Edgar Allan Poe. They have certain themes that come out and are in their stories, but they don't explicitly say what those ideas are.
I absolutely love Edgar Allan Poe.
Mhm.
So which of his works, are there many of his works that where there are things, or are you talking maybe specifically about the Gold Bug or?
Well, the Gold Bug for sure,
Yeah.
the Cask of Amontillado, and some of his poetry as well. But in particular, The Raven.
Yeah.
And so, when it comes to, say, Alexander Dumas, like I said, The Man in the Iron Mask, the Count of Monte Cristo, when you have, these other ideas and themes cropping up in literature, that tells me that these people were also in the know. So one of the things that the RC said was, and we can get into who the RC originally were, I hope, later in the evening. But really, what that tells me is that they weren't supposed to do it overtly. They were supposed to do it in secret and subtly, as sort of a nod and a wink to each other. Hey, listen, I know the story too. And so, when we look at these stories, all of a sudden we say, oh, okay, so you knew the secret, but you never told anyone. And what I did was, I'm not a member of any secret society or fraternity, which means I, quote unquote, have no obligations to anyone to keep secrets. And so when I discovered the secrets about Sir Francis Bacon, that's why I wrote my book. Because I think that William Raleigh was his secretary and had all of his documents after Sir Francis Bacon. I say experienced his philosophical death at the age of 65. They faked it. But he stated that someday, the true fabric of who Francis Bacon truly was would be told. And I think that's what I've done. I wanted to, I feel that the story is so compelling and so important that it shouldn't be kept a secret. So that's why I did that.
Do you feel like, it's in some way your story to tell? I mean, do you feel like this is sort of meant to be or anything like that? Or do you think that's just random that you develop this interest in this specific personality? And then, I'm always curious about that because I know people who get so hooked on, one aspect or another of history, and it somehow all seems connected into this big overarching mystery. And, of course, with the Rennes-le-Chateau story, the Rennes-le-Chateau mystery, there's all kinds of paintings and poems and troubadour songs and all kinds of things that can be, interpreted. And you see these little words, there's, like little, I'm thinking, that what you're talking about when looking at the bacon stuff, there are certain themes that keep recurring.
Oh yeah.
And like, one of the themes that recurs a lot is a treasure. One, if they're talking about a rose or roses, then there's something there. Is that what you mean with the bacon material?
Well, yeah, that's a big part of it, I think. And it's funny, the first part of your question, that's something that when I started discovering this information, I shared it with my friend Chris Dona. And he was able to find information using completely different techniques that corroborated what I found. And then in recent days, I have to give a shout out to some of my friends, Jason Mercer and William Russell in England. They have been using, some of my information, and they've been finding corroborating evidence to support what I've said in the King James version of the Bible, as well as other Rosicrucian type images and woodcuts. And so, this has branched out into, something much, much larger than myself. And when you ask, do I feel like it was, something I had to do? At a certain level, yes, but I felt that I owed it to the man, Francis Bacon, in a very real sense, to tell the truth, tell his truth about who he really was, who his real parents actually were. That was the big bombshell that was a part of his story. And so, yeah, it's not so much that I felt like it's my story to tell, although it really felt like it was what's that?
Not really your story to tell, but your job to tell it.
Short answer, yes.
And you,
I
also feel like we were talking about responsibility of keeping secrets. You probably feel some sort of responsibility to keep it as pure and, truthful and do the right thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Well, the big part of that comes directly from Francis Bacon himself. His big overarching value was truth.
Mm.
He valued the sacred Tao is what it was. That's the meaning of the letter T. The Tao is that it represents the idea of truth. And that was what he was really after. That's what he was really worshiping in a sense. And I felt that I owed it to him and owed it to the truth to make sure that this information got out. So yeah.
Interesting. And, I was curious a little bit. I haven't read a lot of Manly P. Hall, but I'm old enough to have actually seen him in person.
Oh, wow.
Here in Los Angeles at the Philosophical Research Society. He used to actually talk every Sunday.
Yes.
It was like going to church, except you went to the PRS and listened to Manly P. Hall talk.
Amazing.
What an interesting character was he. Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Strange man.
Very strange, but brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. What a mind. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think his wife, and although her name escapes me, has some pretty interesting research and connections to certain stories. I think that Court has been into, like the Beale treasure stuff and all that. So it's so interesting how people and things keep coming back up over and over in different ways, but then you figure out somehow that they're all connected. It's almost mind-blowing.
Yeah, it really is. And, it's funny. I feel the same way with our friend Court Lindahl. All of this research that I've done has led me to become friends with him and our other friend, John Edwards. The way all of our paths just kind of crossed, and then we connected, and now we're kind of in cahoots, working on other stuff together. It's been really just a fascinating journey. And
I'm going to drag John Edwards on here as soon as he's ready.
Oh my gosh! Yeah,
I know. I've seen that. I've seen it, but
I
I
know.
can't tell anybody.
We're all exploding. We just want to just say,
I was like,
look at this. Yeah, I
but
know.
anyhow, yeah, we'll get him. We'll get him.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
now, when you were on Oak Island, were they asking you about the Bacon connection?
Well, I actually did my presentations in the war room virtually because it was during COVID.
Sure.
Was it not this last summer? I was supposed to do one this last summer, but let's just say that my area is not in the green zone, and that's all I can say. but fans of the show are going to know exactly what I mean. But yeah, what it was, I had, sent in my submission. My friend Chris Dona had done multiple presentations with him, and he was doing presentations at the time with Corey and Mall and Chris Morford. We were all kind of collaborating at that point. I was working with Aaron Helford as well. And so when all of a sudden I decrypted these messages in the plaque, one of them explicitly is about Oak Island. And at that point, I was so distracted by the information that, first of all, he states explicitly that he used the name Shakespeare and wrote the plays and sonnets. He also reveals who his real parents are. Which was absolutely the bombshell information, which I hope we'll get into here in a little bit.
Okay.
But really, with Oak Island, what happened was I at that point dismissed that the plaque had anything to do with Oak Island, and so I was just so enthralled with what I had discovered. But then suddenly there was just one word that kept popping up in this one area. And with cipher work, what I had to do is follow a standard operating procedure to make sure I was staying objective and not being subjectively picking information. I wanted to make sure that it was
following the scientific method.
Exactly. Well, basically, I used Bacon's inductive reasoning.
Yes.
And so, and that's what basically Sir Francis Bacon taught me how to read his cipher through that process. It was really kind of cool. And so what happened was the word that I kept looking at and dismissing was Arcady. Acadia, it's Arcady was the way it was written. And I realized you start with context, you find the context, that, in other words, inductive reasoning, you take what you know, you apply it to what you don't know, and then you look for the clues that fit the context. And the context was Arcady, and I dismissed it incorrectly because
why do you say that that's in reference to Oak Island and not necessarily Rennes-le-Chateau?
Well, because at the time of Bacon, and right at the time that he had created this plaque, they had always referred to Nova Scotia as Arcadia.
Right.
And so it fit the context of the chronology of the time period. And so that's why I immediately assumed it could be about Nova Scotia.
So,
and I didn't necessarily apply it directly to Oak Island either, because it wouldn't have been called Oak Island back then.
Please don't blow my mind completely and tell me that, Poussin's Shepherds of Arcadia is really about Oak Island. Please.
Well, that's the basis of Chris Morford and Corey and Mall's theory that they presented last season. So yeah, I had a different take on Poussin's painting, where Corey and Mall had interpreted et in Arcadia ego as an anagram in Latin. And I've been able to interpret it as a series of anagrams using the same sort of cipher system that is at work in the plaque.
Right.
And the messages, again, kind of corroborate what I found in the plaque, which is really kind of interesting. But that's probably a story for another day. But that's what I was telling you, pre-show, that it's not so much that I'm obsessed with it. It's just that it keeps on going. I can't stop doing it because the information just keeps unraveling and keeps pointing me in new directions. And as I follow those leads, I just follow where the clues lead me, and it just keeps producing more and more information.
I mean, I feel like it's sort of this way, you're just pulling on a thread, and you think you're almost there. And then suddenly there's another thread that goes off in a different direction. And it's like, oh my gosh, I thought I was, going to get to the end somehow, but you never, ever do. And I think that's, to me, that's, we see a lot of spider web type symbolism,
Oh gosh.
I feel like that's, we're stuck in the web. Just like, I don't know if you're familiar with the author Tim Wallace Murphy, but he's written a lot of books about, the royal bloodlines and Rex Deus and all that. And he passed away a couple years ago, but he was a good friend of mine. And he calls not only that area in France around Rennes-le-Chateau, but the subject area the glue pot, because he said you can't get out of it. Once you're there, you're stuck. You're stuck.
I can totally identify with that description. 100%.
Yep.
Yeah.
But so now, have you you were saying that you had people in England, researchers in England, that were using some of your material. Now, did you actually go to England and dig up any of this stuff, or you're
no,
just
not at all?
Literature and records and photographs.
What I've done is I've been able to get my hands on facsimiles of the first folio, facsimiles of the King James Version original. And along with the plaque, it's very, very famous. Lots of very high resolution images of it that were very useful. And so, like I said, this was my COVID project. So here I was sequestered here at home and just kind of going through it and just kind of counting the characters that appear on the plaque and rearranging them. Because that's what the clues indicated that I was supposed to do. And as it turns out, it's called a transposition cipher, whereby you take each character and you have to rearrange them according to an algorithm that is set up with a key, a number that sets up the algorithm that allows you to rearrange it into a table. And that's what I was able to do, was figure out what the keys were, and it worked. So.
Oh, that's amazing. And I lied to you earlier. You said, I said I'd been to that church. You said Trinity Church, but Trinity Church was not where I was. It was that little church in St. Albans.
Okay. The chapel.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, isn't Francis Bacon buried there, or is he buried at Trinity?
Well,
because I thought he was buried in St. Alban.
He's supposed to be in Alban. They've never found him because, well, frankly, he's on Oak Island.
No.
Yes.
What?
That's what my research tells me.
No.
Yeah. I mean, and so it's crazy as it sounds. Well, that's a great question. They haven't looked at the right.
Somebody already found him and moved him.
That is a distinct possibility. In fact, that's always been the possibility with Oak Island. And as a fan of the show, and I know that your fans listening and watching this evening, and none of us really want to think that what we know at least was there at one time is no longer there. And I think that anyone watching this season knows,
unless you can figure out where they took it,
right? And at this point, like I said, I wish I could tell more about where I believe it is, but no one has really looked in this location before. So, I would,
and then you can tell us.
Yeah. Well, we hope. And I did put the general location in my second book, the hidden or the Oak Island treasure map, and that is, let's see, the Kindle is already available, but the softcover book is going to be available. Yes, that's it. Thank you. That will be available, I think, next week on Monday. So,
and I think someone else was asking about this book as well in the chat room. So yes, you have found the right book, and here is another one that you can get starting tomorrow.
The softcover should be available either tomorrow or Monday. I'm not sure which.
Wow, great!
But the Kindle version is already live on Amazon. So, but the Holy Trinity Decryption, basically, I tell the story explicitly how I actually solved the cipher. And so, out of all of the Francis Bacon ciphers out there and the books about them, I had never found one where the author explicitly explained how it was done. There were, general references and theories and so on. And then they say, oh, by the way, here's what it said. With this book, what I did was, and those of you who are listening and watching, I'm going to warn you now, it's god awful boring, because I literally go letter by letter and say, this is where I found this word and how I found it.
I love that.
So I really wanted it to be explicit in terms of how I solved it, and be just very, very lucid in terms of, I used a very specific scientific standard operating procedure that allowed me to stay objective in decrypting the messages in the plaque. And the thing is that, as someone who has always been a fan of Shakespeare, obviously, I've always been a fan of the Prince Tudor theory. And in case you or your viewers and listeners aren't aware of this, Prince Tudor theory states that Francis Bacon was the secret son of Queen Elizabeth I, and he wrote the works of Shakespeare. Unfortunately, the messages that I found, I've always been a fan of that theory. I've never loved it because I felt that there were some very serious logical problems with it. In particular, Sir Francis Bacon never, rose to any station that was important during the reign of Queen Elizabeth. In fact, it was almost as if she kept him at arm's length, which I found to be very odd if, she was actually his mom. But the message I did find,
not
what's that?
Maybe she didn't want people to know that she had the baby.
Well, yeah, but the problem is that the Earl of Essex, the second Earl of Essex, Robert Devereux, was very, very close to her, and they behaved as though they were mother and son. So, and that was one of the messages in the plaque, is that yes, Robert Devereux was the son of Queen Elizabeth. And it was the reason why I basically unlocked the whole reason, the underlying reasons behind Essex's rebellion, which actually led to his beheading. And so that's a whole nother part of this soap opera that are in these messages here. But the real shocking information about his parents, people had always found references to him being a king or a prince, or reference to his mother as the queen, and all of the evidence, the circumstantial evidence that people use to support the idea that Bacon was Elizabeth's son, actually supports the truth, which I found out in these ciphertexts. And this is the bombshell information that the Prince Tudor theorists and the Stratfordians don't like. Is the fact that he explicitly states in multiple ways that his real parents were actually Mary Queen of Scots and Francis II of France. Now, before people howl at me that this can't be true, I know all of the reasons why that historically people say that this isn't possible. However, I would like to point out that the victors in this story were the ones who wrote history. Queen Elizabeth I
Always.
and Catherine de' Medici. They were the winners here. Now, Catherine de' Medici would not have tolerated the idea after her son Francis died. Francis II died before Francis Bacon was born, about a month before he was born. And so Catherine de' Medici never liked Mary, Queen of Scots, despised her, never liked her for Francis. And so suddenly here was Mary, Queen of Scots with an heir to the throne. And here Catherine de' Medici had been the regent, queen regent of France for so many years. She is not going to give up that position. And so Mary, Queen of Scots has to get out of Dodge at that point. And so Amias Paulet and a couple of others negotiated with Queen Elizabeth for Mary's return, safe return to the islands of Scotland and England. And so as a part of that, I believe Elizabeth could not allow her biggest rival and rival for her throne and the biggest threat to her throne to come back with an heir, a legitimate heir, which is what Bacon would have been. And so that would have been a true threat for her and her reign. And because we all know that she did not have a legal heir to her throne. Right. And so, it really is an amazing story and like I said, I've been able to find corroborating evidence from alternative sources other than just the ciphertext of the plaque. So that fact alone is one of the things that has allowed, other people who have read my book to go out, and I mentioned them earlier to you, and both my friends Jason Mercer and William Russell, they have been actually using the values that go along with what Francis Bacon's real identity would have been to identify new pieces of information and research in what they've been doing. So it's really exciting stuff.
You're saying they're applying the cipher to his actual name.
Yes.
What would have been his name?
Well, let's see. It would have been he uses what are called cipher signatures. Now, if people aren't familiar with what a cipher signature is, all it is that Bacon took the alphabet and, basically numbered the alphabet in a variety of ways. And when you, for example, his simple cipher, you start with the letter A, which is 1, and you go to Z, which is 24. There are 24 letters in the Elizabethan alphabet. There is no J or U. And so when you have those values, and if you take the name Bacon, for example, and you add up BACON, it adds up to the number 33, which is the cipher signature for Bacon. Now, what we can now do is look at how his name would have been Francois Stuart III or Francois Valois Angoulême III, and calculate those values, and suddenly those numbers are appearing everywhere. Okay. And so what this did was it unlocked some numbers that allow us to continue this research in areas that we couldn't definitively say before Francis Bacon was involved, but the values that represent his true identity are there. And so now we have a trail of evidence to follow.
So which one then, the Stuart identity or the Valois?
Oh, he used both.
Oh, he did?
Oh, yeah. He was, and the thing was, he was never using those names publicly, obviously.
Right.
He was a state secret for Queen Elizabeth. I mean, there's no way that they were going to allow, this truth to get out. And so what he did was, this was the nature of the Fraternity of the Rosy Cross. This was their secret. And so what they did was they encrypted this in the Fraternity of the Rosy Cross, along with the Fama Fraternitatis. And basically the Fraternity of the Rosy Cross at the very beginning, at its inception, only involved 3 people, as far as I can tell so far. And that was Francis Bacon, Anthony Bacon, his surrogate brother, and Sir Walter Raleigh. And so these 3 figures who were, spies and operatives for Queen Elizabeth, and that is a part of recorded history that we know, they were identifying themselves as the Rosy Cross. Word of that was not supposed to get out. This was just something they were doing to amuse themselves at the beginning. And so it has now since obviously turned into a whole series of groups that have modeled themselves after that original idea.
So the Fraternity of the Rosy Cross sort of morphed into other organizations. Is it the Rosicrucians?
Yes.
And there are different groups of those, but basically they were. Are you saying the whole Rosicrucian idea was to cover up Francis Bacon's parentage?
It wasn't to cover it up; it was to record it.
To record it, to protect it, to keep the information. Wow.
Correct. Yes. And I've been able to demonstrate that in a variety of ways, with some of my videos in my podcast. And it like I said, it just keeps going because the images that the Rosy Cross produced, the pamphlets associated with them that were published are full of clues and cipher messages that indicate all of this.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's pretty amazing.
That is pretty mind blowing.
So, like I said,
idea.
It wasn't until I really got involved in this and I saw how complex everything was that I really started to, learn more about, cracking ciphers and cryptanalysis and those kinds of things. And so, this led me to the work of William Friedman, who was basically the father of the modern NSA. And so I read all of his lectures. And what's neat is you can actually go to the NSA website and they have a whole section with his lectures there in PDF form. So I'm sure they knew that I was there. I mean, I guess that's what they do, right? So, so I was able to read all of this stuff and learn more about how to continue this work.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you guys can test this out, but I just saw this week that someone said, and they proved it, at least in a YouTube video. I don't know if it's true because I didn't try it, but if you type in Illuminati backwards on Google, I think it takes you to the NSA website.
That's funny.
Some of you guys try it, Oh my God.
We want to know.
Yeah. Inquiring minds want to know.
Yeah.
But, and isn't it interesting though? I mean, you mentioned your friend from the NSA. There does seem to be a lot of crossover between secret societies and alphabet agencies and intelligence agencies.
Absolutely.
And I've noted, that some of these guys that I've met that have been parts of these secret societies, I've sort of witnessed them using some of the same techniques in talking to you that, I know that the agencies use, like cognitive interview. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a way of interviewing someone and where you can kind of elicit information that they don't even realize they're giving out.
Right.
And I had that happen in a meeting one time in England with a purported member of the Priory of Zion. And it was the strangest experience. And after it was all over, I was asking my partners that were there with me, I said, did you pick up on what was going on there? I said, I felt like he was plugged into my brain, and the more I thought about it, because I had studied a little bit about those techniques cognitive interview, hypnosis, and things like that. That's the only reason I recognized
Sure.
what he was doing.
Oh, wow. That's fascinating.
It was very bizarre. But anyway, why do you think that is? Why is there so much, intersection between these intelligence agencies and secret societies?
Well, you're asking me to speculate. I don't like to speculate, but I will, because from what I've seen from the work with the Fraternity of the Rosy Cross, for example, they were already, a spy network. And from everything that I've found so far, the Fraternity of the Rosy Cross, they created this whole thing just to amuse themselves. It was kind of a joke. In fact, there was this little thing that I've uncovered because I've been able to figure out there is a formula to calculate whether or not a mask or a name or an alias is a name for or an alias of Sir Walter Raleigh or Francis Bacon or Anthony Bacon that I've been able to parse out now. And so that's going into my next book, which is going to be called The Ghosts of Bacon, because I'm really going to be delving into his aliases. But what's really interesting is that Bacon and Raleigh were playing this game of gotcha, in a sense, with their alias. They would come up with aliases that when you looked at them on a superficial level, using just the regular cipher systems and not this formula that I've uncovered, it would indicate that the other guy was the alias. For example, Shakespeare, William Shakespeare, in Bacon's reverse cipher is 177. That's the value of Walter Raleigh in reverse cipher. So when Bacon came up with that, he was kind of like sending a signal to Raleigh, "Hey, I'm messing with you here." And Raleigh had one of his aliases. He did the exact same thing. You calculate the value, and it points to Francis Bacon using the ciphers. So it's really kind of funny. Where I think that the reason why we see this overlap between secret societies and, as you say, the alphabet agencies, is that they operate in the same ways. You have to have an honor system. You have to have a set code of conduct of secrecy in order to operate correctly. And so when they were already doing this as their own little spy network, and then they suddenly create a little secret society that goes along with it, one fits perfectly with the other. And one of the messages of the ciphertext that I did not include in my first book, it's going in the next book because it was rather involved, and I wanted to find more corroborating evidence to support it, which I've now found, states explicitly that Bacon says, "My Fama fraternity evolved into Freemasonry." And so, we know that the Guild of Freemasonry, goes back, thousands of years. And we know that it was, a guild with a membership at the time, and it was starting to become more speculative. And during the time that Bacon and company were in operation. So it makes perfect sense that it became the speculative arm of Freemasonry.
Sorry, I just got a message. It does take you to the NSA site.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is hilarious. I wonder if somebody just did that and they were able to point their browser to the NSA website. I mean, can you point your browser to any website? I guess that's so funny.
I never knew that. Thanks.
Thanks for checking that out for us. Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah, I asked your friend if he knows about that.
Well, I mean, it wasn't my friend. It was basically the father of the modern NSA, William Friedman.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, yes.
He had a whole series of lectures where, he was basically saying, when you are, working on cryptanalysis, this is how you do it. And so, my research led me to his works, and I learned an awful lot from reading his lectures, for sure.
I'll have to check him out.
Yeah.
He was the father.
Very interesting guy.
Yeah.
He and his wife were actually a team of cryptanalysis. Originally, he studied genetics, and he was working for a laboratory of this eccentric millionaire. And they were also working on the ciphers encoded within the first folio of Shakespeare. And he met his wife there, and they both had the same interest of cipher systems. And next thing you know, he becomes an expert in ciphers. And that's kind of how he fell into it. He and his wife actually wrote a book that debunked the idea that there were a series of ciphers in the first folio, which is really kind of interesting.
Oh,
They never stated explicitly that they didn't believe that Bacon wrote them. Interesting, they left that part out. But they did say that all of the people who had claimed that they had found different ciphers within the first folio, that it doesn't have a whole series of them, that there were only hints here and there. But
yeah, well,
really
since you and I are both friends of Court Lindell, I can't imagine that he has not asked you what you think about this particular cipher or this particular. Has he asked you if you've ever decoded Shugborough Hall?
He didn't ask me, but I did offer it up, and I do have a solution to it that I haven't shared with anyone yet. And I was going to
share it here exclusively tonight on Night Vision.
I don't know if I could find it here in all my papers all over the place, but yeah, I'm definitely going to be sharing that with him, because it goes along with the Et in Arcadia Ego acronym, or excuse me, anagram. Basically, it states that Mary and Catherine let Francis II die. And that's just one of the anagrams that comes out of Et in Arcadia Ego. And so then I looked at Shugborough Hall, applying that this idea with Francis Bacon and his true identity. And if the people involved were in the know, then that message could possibly have, to do with that context. And so what I did was I simply applied the Baconian cipher systems, only I adjusted it for the modern alphabet, because it actually the letters on the Shugborough monument contain a U and a V. And so that indicated that it was a modern example of the alphabet. So what I did was I created a new system that is modeled after the Baconian systems. And it did produce a whole series of cipher signatures associated with the Rosicrucians. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But like I said, that's a much longer story than probably what we have time for now. But at some point, I'd love to go into it, and then I'll do a whole presentation for you. And
I would love it. I would absolutely love it. I mean,
But again, like I said, it's at this point, it's speculation.
40 years, trying to.
Yeah, I know, and I wanted to share it with Court, in particular, because of all of his work. His latest book is just so good. And if people aren't familiar with it, about he goes into the Arcadian mythology, and it's just such a good read, and he's such a good storyteller anyway, that it's just you can hear his voice while you read it. It's so great.
He's got a great voice.
I wanted to share that with him, and like I said, at this point, I avoid speculation, and I like to have some kind of corroborating evidence that would go along with it, that would corroborate my findings. And so I wanted to share it with him first to see what his thoughts are, to see if he knows of anything that would support what I found. And so
we could do a whole Shugborough show if maybe you and Kurt both can come on.
That would be fun. If I'm knowing him, he probably has the info I need. So to corroborate that.
He's he's constantly digging and constantly finding.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
Just an amazing guy.
Yeah. He does some good work, and he has a lot of good books. So we're talking about Cort Lindahl, guys. His name is Bradbury Cort, Cort Lindahl, Lindahl. If you want to look up his books as well. And I'm seeing, you got some people in the chat room definitely interested in your books, Jake. So,
great. Thanks, everyone.
Really cool. And we got about 2 minutes until we take a quick break.
Sure.
And hear a couple quick messages, and then we'll be back. But and what I'd like to do, if it sounds reasonable to you, is start actually looking at the plaque.
Oh yeah.
Whatever order, I've got the pictures, and I can bring them up as you like. And then if you could kind of explain what all those little numbers mean that you put on there.
I thought that would be a great introduction to the material because, it gives a brief overview of what I really did. And also, points to the fact that Bacon wrote Shakespeare. So I thought it would be a cool little introduction for everyone.
You don't doubt that?
No, I don't doubt it at all.
I mean, because there have obviously been other people put forth.
Yeah. But,
was one, maybe, was it De Vere?
Edward De Vere. The problem is there's no evidence to support it whatsoever.
Interesting.
So some of my friends don't like it when I say that, but I can't help it. I have to.
Yeah. Well, you can't decide beforehand where you want the evidence to lead.
Exactly.
You got to keep an open mind and just follow it where it goes. I it's hard not to develop your own thesis and then try to prove it. But big mistake.
Oh, it is. It is.
Well, when we come back, we're going to be looking at some very interesting images of this plaque that Jake has decrypted, and we're going to find out some secrets about Francis Bacon. So stay with us, and we'll be right back.
Hey members, the new KGRA-DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA-DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA-DB.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
Welcome to the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. Here you'll find great new content, including the KGRA Classics, great shows from our archives. You'll be able to see the show times and information so you can see what show is currently on air. The on-air live button. So just go to this section and you'll be able to hear the show live with exceptional sound quality. We also have the Vault section. Make sure to subscribe to get access to great content and special features. We have the make content for our latest news and events, so make sure to sign up and you can be part of our forum. So make sure to check out the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. We look forward to seeing you there, and we hope that you enjoy the new website.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Night Vision. If you're just joining us, I'm your host, Renee Barnett. We're talking with Jacob Roberts author and researcher and Francis Bacon obsession haver. No, we love it. I think, to really get to the heart of any of these, pieces of the puzzle, you really do have to kind of, if you don't have an obsession when you start, you kind of either develop one, either just naturally or out of necessity, because you have to, or you'll never get anywhere. It's just a bottomless pit almost.
Well, yeah, it's such a rabbit hole, Renee. And by the way, thanks for having me again. I really appreciate it.
I'm so
being able to
excited.
share the information with you and your listeners and viewers. But yeah, it really has become an obsession of sorts, simply because it's such a rabbit hole. And like I was telling you in pre-show, that one discovery leads to another, people who are familiar with or have liked the National Treasure movies. Remember the
Yes.
first where Professor Gates, he just goes, his father says, oh, it's just going to lead from one clue to another. It's never going to lead anywhere, just to another clue. That's how this has been in a very real sense. Each new discovery leads to another clue, which leads to another discovery, but then that discovery leads to another clue. And so in order to, I think you're right, in order to be able to unravel some of the answers to this amazing mystery, it requires a lot of focused attention. And the only way to spend that amount of time with that amount of focused attention is to become a little bit obsessed, I guess. So I guess that is a good description. Yeah.
Now, you mentioned Corian Rock earlier. I remember, it's been a number of years ago now. He used to have a radio program with Philip Coppens, who has since passed away several years ago now. And many of you might have seen on Ancient Aliens. He appeared on that show quite a bit. But they were really involved in the Rennes-le-Château research. And in fact, their radio show was called Renessence. And so is Corian connecting this Bacon information and the Oak Island information back to the Rennes-le-Château, or has he moved on from that?
No, actually, Corian and Chris Morford collaborated and did an amazing presentation regarding Versailles, and how Versailles is actually connected to Oak Island, directionally speaking. And, it's in relation to their information about Corian believes that, it involves one of the menorahs from Solomon's Temple.
One of them or the one?
Well, one of the things that he's always careful to say is that there was always more than one there. And so the idea that, there would only be one, is something that, he's kind of tried to dispel, I think.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
I knew there would be more than one menorah, but I thought there was one, giant one,
I think that's what most people believe. And,
Probably.
that's the idea that's out there. And I think that
just a misconception.
it could be. Yeah. Could very well be. But their ideas were originally around the Poussin painting and of the Shepherds of Arcadia. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that Court has kind of brought to the conversation is that he thinks it has more to do with Philip Sidney's Arcadia, his book that he had written for his sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Countess of Pembroke. So it's really pretty interesting hearing all of, these different aspects of how it relates and does it go back to Rennes-le-Château? And so they haven't really traced it to Francis Bacon. And they're kind of looking at an aspect of the time period just before the Rosicrucians in Francis Bacon, I think.
I see. I see. Now, if you guys are not familiar with the Poussin painting that we're talking about, this is it. It's called Shepherds of Arcadia. And oh my goodness, much speculation and much research has been done on this particular painting. There's an inscription on the side of this tomb that says "Et in Arcadia ego," and people have been, trying to figure this out and interpreting it in different ways for a long time now. Some people think that tomb was an actual place in the landscape of the environ of Rennes-le-Château there.
France,
and there was a tomb there. And a friend of mine, Reverend Lionel Fanthorpe, who's one of the original Rennes researchers, actually, I was there at the tomb before it was dynamited by the landowner, and got some nice pictures of it. And also, there's a little bit of footage of Henry Lincoln there with Henri Boution at the tomb, and
amazing.
That footage exists. So there's some interesting correlations here. I just wondered whether or not those guys who were so heavily involved in the RLC, Rennes-le-Château, had also sort of figured out that it was all connected somehow to Oak Island. And I guess the reason, or one of the reasons, is I don't know what it is, but maybe it's just because I was so sucked in to southern France that I've just never paid much attention to the Oak Island aspect. And I always felt like that was kind of a red herring. But
right.
Of late, I'm beginning to think maybe there is something to it.
It's funny you say that, Renee, because I mean, I really did not take the Oak Island mystery seriously until season 6, when my friend Chris was on. Because that was the season where suddenly they were using the technique called dendrochronology, where they were actually able to they were able to find artifacts of man-made structures on the island and date them. And this proved beyond a reasonable doubt that there were man-made structures on the island before the so-called money pit discovery. I had always believed that the money pit itself was a ruse, was a distraction away from what was really going on there. But then, all of this evidence, they keep stacking it up. And then when my friend Chris was on the show, I reached out to him. I said, well, because he mentioned the Royal Arch. And in his work, he always delved into astronomy, and great astronomer. And when he said those words, immediately I emailed him. I said, "Oh yeah, you mentioned the Royal Arch on the show the other day. I have always said that this is what's going on, with the money pit symbolism. It's the Royal Arch degree of Freemasonry, and here's why." And talked about, all of the trappings of that particular degree. And he says, "Well, you should really write that up and send it in." And I said, "Well, I don't know. I love the show because I love the symbolism. I love Knights Templar. I love the Rosicross. I love the Freemasonry stuff. But, I never really took it seriously that there might be anything there until, all of a sudden they proved there a lot of work was done there. And the more I started researching it, the more I realized it's something, it's very substantial. And as I did this research and decrypted the plaque, because Chris Morford and Chris Dona and others were looking at it and decrypting it in a different way, where they were identifying the name Bacon on it in different ways, that kind of a thing, using geometry. When I looked at it, I thought, oh, it has a bunch of characters on it that are conjoined letters, and we're going to look at them here in a minute. And this indicated to me that, well, that should be a transposition cipher, because if these letters are connected and appear as one character when they're actually 2 letters or 3 letters in one case, that means that they're supposed to move together in a transposition. Those letters stay together. And that was one of the clues that led me to decrypting it in the first place. And that's how I ended up here today. So,
shall we have a look at the plaque itself without?
Yeah. Let's look at you called it full inscription plane. Yeah, there you
we go.
So this is the plaque I'm talking about, gang. And a lot's been said about it. And if you look at it, it's just what is it? 8 lines of verse, two lines in Latin at the top.
Yeah.
And then when I saw this and I saw "Stay passenger, why goest thou by so fast? Read if thou canst." As soon as I saw "read if thou canst," I realized, I'm like, oh, this is a call to decryption. It's saying you can read this if you can. If you can, read it. And what it tells us, it says, "Read if you can, whom envious death hath placed within this monument, Shakespeare." Now, notice the colon appears after the name Shakespeare.
Yes.
Do you see that? Well,
yes.
That means that Shakespeare is the monument. It doesn't mean that Shakespeare is in the monument because of the punctuation. It's calling Shakespeare a monument. And so it says, "Who has envious death placed within this monument, Shakespeare?" In other words, whose name is really here? Okay. And so what I did was I said, well, I guess I need to figure out that answer. If you look at, and in order to do this is a transposition cipher, you have to go through and count the characters and rearrange them according to an algorithm. And in order to create the algorithm, you have to have a key, which is usually a word that you can translate into a number using one of Bacon's cipher systems. Or what I decided to do was try the numbers in the lower right-hand corner, the date and the age of Shakespeare's death. Now, here's the problem, is that in cipher work and steganography is what it's called. All that means is it's a secret message that's hidden within a surface message that when you just glance at it, you don't know that there's a secret message there. Okay.
Right.
So it just looks like, and when you read this verse, it's really convoluted. And that's usually one of the first clues that you have some kind of a cipher going on, is that when you read it, it doesn't really make perfect sense the way it's written. And then what you have to do is you also have to look at mistakes. Mistakes are always clues.
Yes.
They're little signposts that tell you, hey, there's something going on here. And if you look in the lower right-hand corner, you will see the word Dio before 1616, and it's misspelled as D-O with the I superimposed up above it.
Yeah.
Okay? So that's a misspelling. And that's usually a clue that, okay, you have to look down here. And so what we look at is the number 1616, and then the age is wrong. Shakespeare was actually 52 when he died. And people have interpreted this as being, oh, well, he was in his 53rd year. When in actuality, they had to have that 3 there in order for the transposition cipher to work. So what we have, and since you can't, basically what it requires you to do is to count. If you look at 1616, I realized I couldn't count 1,616 characters.
Right.
Because there, as we're going to look in one of the next images, there are only 305 characters on it. And so I realized, well, you add them together, 1616 is 32.
32.
And this is an important number because it's the letter F, Francis Bacon's initial, in his K cipher. And so I said, well, I'm going to try 32 and see what happens. And so I counted to the 32nd character, and I pulled that out. And then I counted 32 more. And I continued that process, and I put them in a table form until I had completely rearranged every character on the plaque. And messages appeared. And I figured, well, since that worked, I should use 53 as well. But since I added 16 and 16, I thought I would use the same technique and add 5 and 3. Mm-hmm. And I used 8, and I rearranged that rearrangement of 32 using the number 8.
Right.
And then the last step, of course, was the 2 and 3 at the end, which is 5. Now, the problem is that there are 305 characters, and if you use 5 to try to rearrange it, it's going to terminate at the very end because it won't continue. because it's divisible by 5. And so I hit an impasse there. But then I discovered a message that indicated that I was also supposed to use the number 38, because it says I, the TT, the double tau. And you can see that. Do you see the THs and how they're kind of conjoined?
Yes, I was noticing.
Okay. Yeah, so that's actually a double tau. That is a T and a T joining it to make it look like an H.
On the side, yeah.
On its side, yeah. And so when it basically said I, EYE, the TT. And when I looked at it, I said, oh, I is a symbol of reason. I have to reason out the TT. Oh, it's 19 plus 19. I have to use 38. And so I went back to the beginning and I completely did it all over again using the number 38. And when I did, there was a phonetic message in there that told me how to use the number 5 in the first cipher. And so I followed the directions and the number 5 worked. So that's pretty much how I did it.
I think my head just exploded. I mean, thank God we have people like you, because if you were waiting for me to, decrypt something, you'd be waiting forever.
Well, I'm going to show you just quickly how it works.
So
What's that?
It must be so tedious.
Oh, it was. But like I said, I had a lot of time on my hands.
All right.
Yeah, if you go to the one with the numbers next.
Go to the one with the full one with the numbers.
Yes, the full one with the numbers. There you go. So,
wow.
What this is, I decided that if I was going to do this correctly, what I needed to do was just count how many characters there were and number each of them. And so I didn't number the letters. I numbered the characters. And this is really important to make this distinction, because I pointed out that TH is actually a TT, but it's conjoined. They're connected.
Right.
If you look at the very center of the plaque, you'll see in the word monument, you have the word me, M-E, as character number 153. Yes. And then you have the NT next to it at 154. This is, a really important aspect of how this plaque works.
Wow.
Because when we get into, I counted, there are 305 characters total. And so the I in judicio is number 1, and then the P down at the bottom is 305. So when you look at that, I realized that, well, wait a minute, what will be the middle character? Well, it's 153. The conjoined letters E. Okay, and I also did this in reverse order, where the P is number 1 and that I in judicio is number 305, and forwards or backwards, me is number 153. And so this was pretty important, and I'll show you why here in a couple of images first. But the simplest way. What's that?
Vesica piscis, right?
Yes. Number 153 is associated with the Vesica Piscis, and it's also what's called a triangular number. And this is significant, particularly with the Fraternity of the Rosy Cross. I mean, it's a triangle, right? What it is, you can have 153 objects will make a perfect equilateral triangle, and you have at one point, it will be the very first object, which is 1. And in the other corner would be object number 137. And that's significant because it's the 33rd prime number. 33 is Bacon. And then we have 153, which is actually, if you calculate the value in his simple cipher of I, Rex Francis Bacon, it's 153. And here we have the word me. So we'll talk about that in one of these upcoming images. But if you want to go to the next one, which is the IV Terra one, upper left.
Okay.
So this is just a close-up, gang, of the upper left-hand corner. There we go. And so what I did was I noticed that this is what's called an acrostic. An acrostic is when you can spell a word going down the side of the page, or in this case, the side of the plaque, and we see the word "its," I-T-S, "its," as in it is. And since I counted each of these characters, what I did was I took whatever value they were in their position on the plaque and added them together. And here you see we have the 1 plus 38, that's the T, and 72 is the S. We add that together and you get the number 111. 111 is the value of the name Bacon in K cipher. So whose name is encrypted in this plaque? It's Bacon. That's the message of this little acrostic. And I realize that this might seem at this point a little superficial, but when you look at it in context of all of the other information, this is a very clear cipher signature of Sir Francis Bacon. And so if we go to that last image, Renee, of the
this one?
Yes, the NU or NVMENT of Monument. This is number 153 that I was talking about there, gang, where it spells me. But if we just simply look at what's on either side of me here, the N and the V, if we add them together in simple cipher, is once again 33, Bacon. If we add the N and T as they're conjoined, we actually get 32, which is the letter F in K cipher. So what we really have here is a message that says me, F, Bacon.
Oh, gosh.
So, and again, these are just some of the very simple and superficial type cipher signatures that appear on the surface of the plaque. And this isn't even getting into the acrostic anagrams that appear within the cipher text itself, which become very, very involved very quickly.
Are you also saying that from this same 305 characters or whatever it is, that you also got the information about his parentage?
Yes. Yes. When you rearrange them, and basically I rearranged the first set using the number 32, right? And this creates a table of characters in a whole new arrangement. I then took that arrangement and I rearranged it using the number 8. I then took that rearrangement of 8 and rearranged that one using number 5 after I learned how to do it. Each one of those 3 transpositions is what it's called. Each one of those keys produced a series of cipher messages called ciphertexts. Okay. And so then when in the middle of key 8, I think it says I, the TT, meaning I had to reason out the TT and use 38 as a key to create an algorithm. Once I did that, key 38 had a whole series of complex messages within it. And within that, it also had a message to use 5 again to rearrange that one. So there are 5 different transposition ciphers in that plaque. In addition to that, there's also what's called a biliteral cipher. This is one of Bacon's most famous cipher systems, the biliteral cipher. It's the basis of the binary system we use with computers today. It's the basis of computer language. Okay. So he created that idea as a cipher, and he created it when he was 16 years old. So the way it works is he uses 2 slightly different typefaces, right? And changes them just a little bit. And every 5 characters actually indicates one letter of the alphabet. Okay. So what he'll do, because of the arrangement of 2 different type of typefaces, every 5 characters will be a different letter of the alphabet. Now, there are 305 characters on this plaque. It's divisible by 5. So I really I thought there's no way I'm going to be able to tell a difference between these crazy looking characters on the surface of this plaque. And then I realized that the answer, as usual, was much simpler than I was making it. And all it had to do with was symmetry and straight lines. The characters that are straight and symmetrical are the A alphabet, and the ones that are a little crooked or not symmetrical are actually the B alphabet. And that message actually states explicitly that it says, explain keys of the RC is Walter Raleigh. So Walt Raleigh is one of the keys to understanding the Fraternity of the Rosy Cross. And so once I started looking at the works of the Fraternity of the Rosy Cross, understanding Walter Raleigh really helped understand those as well. So, there are no less than 6 different messages there. Yeah.
I remember, first thing I ever heard about Walter Raleigh as a kid was, him throwing his coat over the puddle for the lady to go over. And,
Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. It was Queen Elizabeth. It's a very famous story. Yeah.
And I was thinking, of course, at that time, it was like, oh, how wonderful. And of course, how chivalric,
Right.
And I'm wondering if that whole chivalric, was it just, I wonder if that really happened, number one, or if it was just a message about chivalry and the chivalric groups that, existed at the time.
Yeah. It's such a famous story. For what everyone knows about him, it could very well be true because he was often in and out of favor with Queen Elizabeth on any given day, because it was part of the reason why she liked him so much was because he didn't really hold back a whole lot in terms of how he was. And so every once in a while, he would make her mad, but then, he would do something like that to win her over again.
Right.
She famously put him in the Tower of London because he married one of her ladies in waiting illegally and without her permission. So Elizabeth Throckmorton. So really, really interesting guy, really interesting story. But it's mind blowing and it boggles the mind in terms of how could he possibly encode his entire autobiography in 305 characters. And the answer I give people when they ask me that question is, well, first of all, we're talking about the greatest mind of the last 500 years. There is no doubt about it that Francis Bacon was unquestionably, one of the greatest geniuses of all time. But then I was able to actually parse out the way he actually encrypted it. So it not only is possible to do this, he actually did it. And anyone who actually, takes the time to read my book and read the messages and see the explanation of how that was done, no one can come away from it and say that it's not possible, because it's real. And once you look at the evidence, there's no way to discount it once you actually look at the evidence.
I'm just trying to figure out or try to grasp the complexity of it, because now is what you're saying that you apply one cipher and you get one message, and you apply another one and you get a different message, and so forth. So there's like all these layers and
multiple layers.
Write something that could say everything in all these 5 different.
Yeah. And not only does he do that, but actually each transposition actually contains more than one message too. Okay. So, well, what it does is, for example, key 38 is really interesting because it produced a table of 2 rows of 19 rows, or 2 columns of 19 rows. And within that, each row has 8 characters in it. And so when you look at them all together, you can actually make out the words as they kind of overlap one another. Okay. It's called an acrostic anagram. And the only way to do this correctly is not to quote unquote cherry pick your letters and say, oh, I'm going to pull a letter from here and a letter from over here and make a word that I want to make. It doesn't work that way at all. And if you try to do that, it definitely doesn't work. The most interesting thing, the part that really blew my mind, was within the cipher system itself. It actually has a checking system where you can check your work, much the same way that a child checks their math problems in math class, right? Well, there's a way to check to make sure that you had the correct decryption. And what it is after you find all of the words in the message, there are almost always, letters left over. And what you then do is you take the leftover letters and you calculate their values in his simple, reverse, and K ciphers. And in all three of those ciphers, they will produce Bacon signatures.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the other thing it does too, and this part at the end was this. By the time I really understood what I was doing, by the time he had really taught me how to decrypt his messages, the cipher signatures were usually about what the message was. For example, he stated he loved to see his frater James on the throne. So he gave up the throne for his half brother, James the First. Okay. And then when I look at the leftover letters, the first one was a Bacon signature. I think it was 67. And then the next one was the value of the word fraters, brothers in Latin. Mm-hmm. And then the last one was James, the value of James and K cipher. So each one actually told the story that he had referenced in the cipher message itself. It says James, Francis, brothers.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, it just happened again and again and again. So, there was no way that you can see that happen over and over again and say, there's nothing here.
Yeah.
And these are explicit messages. They're not just hints or something that you can kind of read phonetically and say, well, it could be Bacon. No, it spells out the messages verbatim. And so, for me, that was just so cool. When one of my favorite things to do at the end was just to check to make sure that, okay, did I get it right? And what are the cipher signatures going to say this time? And then what I found was towards the end that the leftover letters oftentimes were another anagram that actually referenced the message as well. Oh. So it's really mind-blowing.
It really is. Now, I guess I got a couple of questions
awesome.
About if he was the author of the works of Shakespeare, mm-hmm. and also at the same time, nobody knew who he really was, or, I'm sure somebody knew, but
they knew. Yeah.
It wasn't publicly known who he really was. Why not have taken credit at the time for the writing? I know a lot of people use pen names, but
yes. Well, it was a convention back then to use a pen name or a mask, particularly if the person was involved in politics. Okay. It was a real no-no back then for anyone who was going to be involved in politics in any way to write poetry or plays. It was really frowned upon. People who wrote poetry were viewed as being not fit for office. that was the real mindset. Yeah. So that's one reason. But also, in the works of the Rosy Cross, particularly the Fama Fraternitatis, they state explicitly that when and also Bacon even wrote this in some of his own works in one of his letters to James I, that he said to James, he says, you know that I've written a lot of things not using my name. I'm paraphrasing. In the Fama, they stated that they would always, publish, but not use their real names. And so this was something that was a convention that they were all doing. And Sir Walter Raleigh, basically one of the kind of a neat aside, he was doing the same thing. He wrote several works that he didn't take credit for. And so in fact, one of them, again, people are not going to like this, but one of them was Don Quixote. He wrote it as anti-Spanish propaganda, and Cervantes. He used Cervantes as a pen name. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Walter Raleigh did. Again, this is what my research has led me to believe. I'm working on getting more corroborating evidence for that one, but that's just one of the things that has cropped up from all of this work. So
that's really interesting.
And
also, I guess,
crazy.
If we're looking at the plaque in particular, it seems like, from what you've revealed so far, that the big secrets are who he really was,
Yes.
and that he really wrote the works of Shakespeare.
Yeah.
So he's gone, Elizabeth's gone. They're all gone, long gone. Why has it not come out before, do you think?
I really believe
hiding it, or does it mean that it would change the succession and that the people that inhabit the throne right now are illegitimate?
Well, there is that. Yes. It was something that could not be revealed back then because it would have completely upended the social order of Europe and kingship in France and England. One of the very first messages says, I'm the king of, or I can have two thrones of two countries, but I pass on holiday is the very first message. And so he didn't want it, but, he couldn't reveal it either in his own time period because it really would have upended the whole social order of what was going on with succession. And so he really wanted the message to be recorded and to be found eventually. And I really want to stress this, Renee, because it gets to the heart of the question that you just asked. I am not the first person to ever do this. There's no doubt in my mind. I mean, I'm a pure amateur, and I looked at it, I had an idea, and I figured it out just by, using his inductive reasoning. And I know that there are a lot of people who have studied this and looked at it more closely than I had and longer than I had. And so I think I'm fully convinced that most of the people who have figured out what I figured out, either they were members of either fraternities or groups where they had taken obligations where they were not allowed to talk about certain secrets. And so that kept them quiet. I also think that they also were abiding by the rules of the RC, where if once you know the secret, you can't reveal it explicitly, but you have to point out that you understand them through the themes of your work. And I think that's what people have done over the years.
Right.
So I don't think I'm the first person to ever figure this out by any stretch.
Have you done any work sort of trying to figure out if Francis Bacon had taken the throne, or if it had been known who he was, where that line of succession would have gone?
Yeah. Well, I still think it would have gone to James and then Charles. Because first of all, James knew who he was very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in fact, there was a story of they had a birthday party for Francis Bacon. His birthday's tomorrow, by the way, everyone. If you want to
Oh
celebrate.
my gosh! No, happy birthday, sir.
Yeah. And so it's funny too because yesterday was my birthday, so
Oh,
he and I are going to celebrate them together, I guess.
yeah, happy birthday.
Thanks. But what's funny is this idea that they had a party for him and James was there, and Francis Bacon wore purple, the color reserved for kingship and royalty. And James didn't say a word. He let him do it. He let him do it because he was the actual rightful king, which is a really cool story. And it's well documented.
Right.
So
someone in the chat room asked if you'd published any work on Nostradamus.
Such a great question. Other people have asked me that too, and I haven't. I haven't done any work with Nostradamus. And what's really kind of interesting is that when you look at the timeline, there's sort of like a little bit of an overlap where Nostradamus was very active in the French court around the same time period. Yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Yeah. There's a house in Allet-les-Bains, which is in that same area of France where I always end up finding myself. And it's a house where Nostradamus used to live. And
oh, wow.
So people are always going by there. There's some kind of inscription on the wall or something. And
right.
But the people, someone has bought it fairly recently in the last few years. And so they actually have a picture of Nostradamus out there, and they do give occasional tours. They'll let people come in and go through the house now. It's kind of neat.
Oh, that's fun.
I guess he studied at Montpellier, which is maybe a couple hours drive from there.
Right.
And I think, wasn't his father the physician of good King Rene d'Anjou?
Yeah, his father, I think he was a doctor, I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. I think he was the personal physician of the King of France, good King Rene. But I digress. Off into another rabbit hole. So where do you go from here? I mean, I know you've got this another book coming out.
Yeah.
And so that's you've got one that's actually coming out in softback tomorrow. And
tomorrow or Monday, yeah. Yeah.
And then you got another one in the works already? Yes,
because like I said, the book that's coming out tomorrow or Monday in paperback is basically I created that. Just a lot of people asked me if I would do something that just gives the Oak Island information separate from all of the decryption techniques and all of the cipher work, because they found that to be pretty tedious, and they just wanted to know, okay, give me the scoop on Oak Island. So that's what I did. I took the information out and I reworked it, and I just kind of explained, here are the cipher texts that are relevant to Oak Island, and it's really kind of cool because the cipher message actually referenced the 1612 map of none other than Samuel de Champlain. I decrypted that map. It has cipher clues all over it. And that map, that navigational chart, can be used to navigate directly to Oak Island. And I definitively demonstrate that in that book. From there, you follow the directions as they are encrypted on the plaque itself in key 38 and key 5 of key 38, and they tell you how to find Bacon's vault. So that's what is in
where they're digging. It's someplace else. It's not where they're currently digging or have dug. It's someplace else.
Yep.
How exciting!
Yeah,
so,
it's fun.
Are we going to see them follow that and go to your location, or are you going to do that privately?
I don't know. I mean, can't really say a lot about it. Things went sideways this last season, as you all know, from watching, where they were able to look and were not able to look. And then with all of the new information they were able to find, particularly with discovering traces of gold and silver in the Money Pit area, obviously that becomes a priority. So, and there have been some other people who have appeared with new information. And so I can say that they have looked in the area where I pointed.
Okay.
I can say that much, I think. But,
well, that's going to be interesting. I guess I'm going to have to watch. I mean, one of my friends is the executive producer.
Oh, God.
Scott Perlman.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I'm going to have to start paying attention, I see.
Well, I did a couple of presentations and what's that?
I'm sorry. Oh, I was just saying, I don't know what it has been that sort of kept me away from the whole Oak Island subject. I think it was that whole Money Pit thing just didn't sound interesting. I'm not really looking for gold, I'm looking for like answers, knowledge, documents, something that's going to answer some questions.
Yeah. What's funny is, when you actually talk to the guys, I mean, that's really what they're interested in too. They want to know who, what, where, when, why.
Yeah.
And connect the dots. And that's what my new book does. It actually connects the dots between the plaque, gets you directly to the island, and then tells you what to do next. And so whether it works or not, we'll find out. But the problem is, and this is kind of what I've been, telling people of late. All of us Oak Island theorists, and Marty and Rick both say a theory is just a theory until you hold something substantial in your hand, right? And that's so true. I don't think any of the theorists or researchers, such as myself, are going to be able to put a definitive X on the map for them and say, dig there.
Right.
Simply because we're taking, our information and using modern technology like Google Earth, which is off by anywhere between, 4 and 5 meters or something like that.
Yeah.
So if I say I used Google Earth to plot this coordinate for you, and it's 15 feet off, well, you can drill if you want, but you're not going to hit anything because you're 15 feet off. You only have to be a couple of feet off, right? So I think that what is going to really work on Oak Island is what they're doing now. They're applying all kinds of different forms of technology. Ground penetrating radar. They're using muons from cosmic rays and stuff like that. That's how they're going to find what they're looking for.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If you could give them the general location and with ground penetrating radar, would that be something that it should be something that would be picked up if there's a tomb there or something?
Right.
Do we know how he's entombed or encased there? Is it supposed to be a tomb? Is it supposed to be stone or?
Well, he referenced that he created a chamber associated with a cave that was already there, is one of the messages. And he refers to it as his thesauri in one point. That's Latin for treasure chamber. And he refers to it as a chamber in another section. So I would suspect that it is, a chamber in rock. Yeah. And so I think that that's really what they're looking for there. And the thing is that when, back when people would have been looking for it in order to find it the first time, I'll put it that way. All of the clues would still be in situ on the island. Okay. Meaning there were multiple stones as markers on the island that have since either been destroyed. I'm thinking of the HO stone. They blew it up with dynamite and it had clues written all over it. They blew it up with dynamite thinking the treasure was underneath the rock. I mean, And then you also have, treasure hunters being treasure hunters. Fred Nolan, for example, he would identify boulders and rocks that had markings on them, and he would document their location, and then he would pick them up for safekeeping and stash them away so that the other treasure hunters wouldn't have access to the information. Yeah. Right? I mean, that's treasure hunting 101. It's misdirection. Yeah. It's what you do. And so, this obfuscation that has happened over the years of all of the clues, that's all of the stuff that would have led to Bacon's Vault. Yeah. And it's gone. It's gone. So in my mind, the best hope of locating it again is using and applying all the technology that they have on the island that they're using. Yeah. Yeah.
They may find it now since technology has gotten to the state that it is. In the chat room, Kathy says, "Oh boy, if they find evidence of a body, all digging would have to stop."
That's so true, Kathy.
It's so true. It's like
it is.
If you do and damned if you don't.
Oh yeah.
I would imagine. Now I don't know if it's. I guess that would be true of anywhere or any body that you would find, but certainly I know in the United States it would have to be determined. If it was a tribal person,
right,
and then that would be an absolute no. I don't know about other graves. I would imagine you would have to stop and figure out what you had there and or who you had.
Yeah, and in order to answer your previous question, though, and I realized that I didn't really answer it. I kind of went off on that tangent there, but Bacon in his own writings talks about the preservation of bodies in tombs, and he said he writes explicitly that you would need to this was written in a book by one of the original Oak Island theorists. His name was Penn Leary, the father of a friend of mine, Brian Leary, who is also what's that?
Brian Leary.
He also did a presentation on Oak Island recently with our friend Judy Rudabush. And Judy. And so the idea is that and he redid his father's book on Shakespeare and the cryptographic Shakespeare. And he Judy actually turned me on to Brian's dad's Oak Island book, where he actually goes into quotes from Francis Bacon about the preservation of bodies, and if you're going to have a tomb, it would need to be under 20 feet deep. Okay, so 20 to 25 feet deep, and so that in my mind, just by following the clues that he had left behind himself. Talking about how to preserve books in mercury, for example. That's one of the theories that, we've all put forward regarding what might be found there and why there's so much mercury on the island. Those kinds of things. I think that all of that is involved for sure. So we would have to really look at the clues he's left behind in terms of even his scientific works that would tell, where it is and what we would be really looking for.
Now, since you brought up Judy Rudabush, I have to ask you, because I met Judy. I know Judy through Zena Halpern.
Oh yeah.
I knew Zena, and
oh wow,
her heart. And but I do want to ask you: are you must be familiar with the Cremona document of Zena's? Yep. What do you think about it? Do you think it's real? I mean, I'm going to tell you right now. I know Zena, was 100% honest.
Yeah. Oh, but,
yeah. Everybody can be fooled. I mean, I've been famously fooled, in the past with the bloodline thing. But what do you think? Do you think that someone was misleading her, or do you think that it's partly right? Or
that's so hard, Renee. Because it could go both ways pretty easily. Looking at the map itself, and the name Rochefoucauld, it all
Yeah.
fits.
Yeah.
I'm a little I'm a little hesitant about the date, to be honest with you. And
Yeah.
here's why. Because I have seen so many examples of works by Bacon and company that have a number on them that's supposed to appear as a date, but it is not the right date.
Right.
And instead, what it is, much like what I did with the plaque, you take the two digits and you add them together, the first two to the last two, and it creates a cipher signature of the person who created the document, or in some cases, the painting, or in some cases, the map. And so when I saw that, and I started looking at the labels on the map and started doing some calculations, if I were able to find some more corroborating evidence that would create a context, I would even speculate that perhaps the map was created by one of the RC brothers, because of what I've noted on it. But again, I would have to find more corroborating evidence to provide to build a context
Right.
to support that theory.
I
But
know Court
to
has
that end,
big doubts about it. I know he's
And
pretty
Court-
skeptical about it.
he's such a good researcher. He has a lot of serious doubts about it, and I know he has very good reasons for that. He
And
wouldn't
I
just say
think
he wouldn't
more
just say
than just what the document looks like. It has more to do with who might be behind it and that sort of thing, because there's been some shady characters a little bit
100%.
pulling off things. And so I don't blame his skepticism. I mean, we all need a good dose of healthy skepticism.
Yep.
So, thank you, Kathy. She says, what a great show. Thank you, Renee and Jake.
Well, thank you, Kathy. Appreciate that very much.
So much.
Yeah, I hesitate
to the website up before we go, because
sure.
we're going to hit the old deadline in about a minute. But is there anything you'd like to share before we go, so that any last words for our viewers and listeners?
Yeah, what I would say is, first of all, thanks for having me. This has been a lot of fun, Renee. And Court had told me that you and I would get along famously, and he was absolutely right. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. And I hope I didn't ask too many dumb questions.
Not at all. Your questions were awesome.
Thank
and,
you. Not my area, but I think it's made
it was
become
great.
my area.
Well, that's just it. It's one of those things where the more you look at it, the more you realize there's so much here. I wish I had gotten started working on this much earlier, because this is a lifetime worth of work. And what I'm really excited about is that, people have read my book, and now they're starting to use my methods, and they're finding things that corroborate, all of the messages. I mentioned a couple of their names here in the broadcast. That for me, that is just really not just affirming, but it makes me feel good that other people are taking what I've done and continuing it and extending it, and finding their own discoveries. And what's neat is when all of a sudden we all kind of start. They message me as hey, listen, I read your book, and next thing you know, we become friends. And
I hate to cut you off, but I'm getting the hook around the neck right now from my producer, and he's very, very mean. So we're going to have to go. That means you're going to have to come back sometime.
I would love to. Yeah.
Thank you, Jacob Roberts. And there's his website right there on the screen. The Ghosts, plural of bacon.com. The Ghost of Bacon.com. Thanks, everybody. See you next week.
Thank you.
Okay.